We are
There we go.
preparing the live stream. Just a minute.
All right, it's up and running for me.
All right, you're good to go.
All right, thank you, Zach. All right, it is 7:19. We're going to go ahead and call the February 24th, 2021 Valley Park School Board of Education meeting to order. If you would, please say the Pledge of Allegiance with me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And again, just as a reminder of the school's mission at Valley Park is to provide a supportive, personalized environment in which students will grow strong intellectually, emotionally, physically, and socially today in preparation for tomorrow. Again, I just want everybody to have that on their mind as we go into our meeting today. So let's go ahead and get right to it with the recognition of the Valley Park School Board District, or School District Board of Education. Dr. Dilge.
Thank you, Mr. Picker. Tonight, it's my pleasure to recognize and thank the 7 members of our Valley Park School District Board of Education for sharing their time, their talent, and their treasures with our entire community. As a member of our board, each individual helps make decisions that have a tremendous impact on the future and the present of our children's and our community. Through their volunteerism, they enhance the quality of life for everyone in the Valley Park School District. Their civic duty, service, and dedication is a testament to their character and demonstrates their commitment to the Valley Park community, while also recognizing the value that public education has in transforming lives. School board membership is one of the most personally demanding forms of public service, and it comes with very little thanks. There is no monetary reward, no salary or stipend, just the peace of mind of knowing that the work that they're doing day in and day out is contributing to the present and a better future for our community. School Board Member Recognition Week is celebrated in February, and our district has highlighted each member of our board this month with social media postings and a message on why they serve our district. I hope our community will also extend their thanks to each board member when the opportunity presents itself to thank the board for the important role they play in helping our district take care of our community's children. So thank you to Jeremy, Adam, Della, Pete, Lisa, Nicole, and Faye for all that you do, not only on the monthly board meetings, but for all the things that people don't see you do behind the scenes, all the data presentations, the readings of reports and contracts, the reaching out to legislators to advocate for free and public education. And thanks first and foremost for always having your heart in the right place and doing what's best for kids, even when sometimes that's really hard to do.
Thank you very much. I know I can speak for myself and hopefully most of the all of the board when we say we appreciate that, and but also it's our honor. I mean, we all have a place in our hearts for Valley Park. So I don't know if any of the other board would like to say anything.
Thank you, Dr. Dilge. I appreciate that.
Yes, I'd just like to reiterate that. Thank you so much for showing a little appreciation. It's our honor to do this. I know that we all feel that way. We care about these kids in the community, and it's an honor to serve. Thank you.
Actually, I think it's a privilege to serve too. I really appreciate the commitment that each of us make, but more than anything, I appreciate the public making the commitment when they vote for us. Thanks very much.
Tim, thanks for the nice words. I've heard them from different people over the years, and I think you summed it up better than anyone has in my 25 years. I've seen a lot of people come and go. I've seen a lot of administrators come and go. The job that we do is so much more than what everybody thinks it is. The connections we make with administrators and employees and students and other boards is far reaching and really hits our heart many more times than people think.
Yeah, it's definitely one of the toughest jobs, but absolutely one of the most rewarding. So thank you very much.
We're going to go ahead and move on to 2.02, the learning report, RTI presentation from Ms. Mirth.
Yes, hello. Let me share my screen before I get started. Can you see a slideshow up?
Yes.
There it is.
Great. Hopefully won't have any tech stuff, but that was easy so far. So thank you, Dr. Dilge, members of the board, staff, and community for letting me join today's meeting and share on the proposed response to intervention plan for special education eligibility for reading in the elementary school. I know that's a mouthful, so I'll talk through what that means. I appreciate the invitation, the interest, the commitment of the board. And aside, I shared this with Dr. Dilge and the principals during a principals meeting, and we kind of weren't sure if we were required to share this with the board meeting and with the board members. We don't think we do, but I appreciated that Dr. Dilge invited me anyway because he knows the members are invested in this process, and I appreciate that as well. So thank you for letting me speak today. I'm Christina Mirth. If you haven't seen me around, I'm an employee for Special School District, school psychologist. I work K through 12 at Valley Park. Our agenda, I will try to keep it simple. I'm a little bit of a talker, so feel free to, you can't kick me under the table, but feel free to interrupt me, especially because I can't see all of your shining faces with the presenting mode. But I will really try to focus on the core, the who, what, why, how, essentially the current model, why we're anticipating and wanting the change, who it will impact, and kind of how the nuts and bolts of how we'll do it. A little summary of that. First of all, this is a work of multiple people, not just myself. Besides myself, Scott Crooks is a special school district employee as well. He's a measurement and assessment coach for special school districts. He works with several districts within the county. He's also at the local state level committee. So he's really been instrumental in helping us develop the specifics of our plan. I'm Julie Schrader, our lead area coordinator for special school district at Valley Park, is also on the team, as well as Dr. Monroe and Michelle Fitzpatrick, the elementary principals. So you can see this is elementary heavy, and this is a proposed change for the elementary school. Though I hope we'll walk away with the understanding that this is important for the district because it will impact all the way through middle school and high school. And I'll talk more about that as we go as well. So the first visual, I know this is pretty wordy and hopefully you can see it okay. I won't hit every single item. This is the standards and indicators language within DESE for eligibility systems. So I'll try to be more summative because that's probably more meaningful. But if I could guide you to the top, this is really the current system for identifying specific learning disability through the discrepancy method. This is what we do at the elementary, middle, high school levels across all areas: reading, writing, math, oral expression, and listening comprehension. Essentially, the criteria is a discrepancy between a student's cognitive achievement or cognitive functioning and their academic achievement. The state identifies that as a 1.5 standard deviation, which is 22 points. So if we're suspecting a student with a specific learning disability and I'm assessing them, if they have a completely average cognitive score of 100, then academic achievement scores at 78 or lower would potentially be qualifying for a specific learning disability. There's some other pieces to that. So this is just a summary, but to give you an idea of what that looks and sounds like right now. The proposed method is using response to intervention, which is focusing on what school research-based interventions are being given that are student-centered, instructional strategies and interventions that are progress monitored on a regular basis, and using that data to determine if a student would meet eligibility. This would be for reading only at the elementary level. And I'll talk a little bit more about what that will look like. The discrepancy method up top is more common throughout the state of Missouri, though response to intervention is considered best practice. And that really leads to our why of wanting this change. Ultimately, it's for kids. We have a large population, specifically here in Valley Park, of students who are not meeting this discrepancy. Then special education cannot service them, and there still remains that significant long-term need. I'm not sure if this is a good place to put it, but I will. At the principals meeting, Dr. Dilge had kind of asked, well, how many students, do you think that we've tested and they didn't qualify for the last few years? I went back and picked up that data, and really we had 6 students who had cognitive scores that were below average or well below average that did not meet the specific learning disability criteria, so they did not qualify for services. I do want to note that the teams at Valley Park, the counselors, the building level data teams, teachers, principals, everyone is really tuned in and not making referrals for students they don't think would qualify. So the number probably is bigger, is kind of what I want you to take away from that. And we can all probably think of a student or two, maybe in your family, a student in your class, a friend who maybe has kind of fallen through the cracks, or they come up repeatedly across the buildings throughout elementary school and then middle school and high school. And that's where it comes in. Response intervention is best practice because it's proactive. The discrepancy model, I remember I was disheartened to hear in graduate school that that's also coined the wait to fail model, because we have to wait until we see that difference. Whereas RTI, as it's also called, is more proactive. I thought about cutting this for time's sake, but I think I really want to highlight, especially with this group, that, and I'm also very proud of this. I came to Valley Park 8 years ago as an internship student and was lucky enough to be able to stay throughout my practice. And when I came, Vicki Pardek was leading an RTI leadership group that was comprised of herself, other administrators, counselors, teachers, and other staff. And really that's been, I've been involved with that, and it's been a reoccurring system. It's kind of looked different each year, but that was really the work of that team, was to strengthen our tier 1, our universal, and to improve our RTI services and processes for kids. Additionally, the elementary, I believe we've kind of talked about that here, but the elementary is committed a few years ago to the comprehensive integrated 3-tier model, also called CI3T, which is a big effort and commitment Valley Park Elementary made a few years ago. This is a framework that addresses both academic and social emotional needs for elementary students across tiers. So at the universal tier 1, at our at-risk tier 2 students, and our high-risk tier 3, and that includes special education. So all of that work has really culminated to where we are today, where we're considering this RTI for eligibility. Okay, this is really the how. It's a summary, a very brief summary. There's a lot more details in a fuller RTI document that I'm happy to share as well, but this really gives us an idea of what this looks like. A big takeaway is a lot of this stuff Valley Park is already doing. And again, that is because of the work that the elementary school has already done through CI3T and other teams. So the process really is, we're screening 3 times a year, which we are doing through FastBridge, identifying students who fall at the well below average range using other classroom data, determine as a team if they're making progress or not. If they're making progress, we continue to monitor them at those benchmark times. If they're not making progress, we want to change something to help. And that's implementing a research-based intervention, collecting data with fidelity. At that point, team determines if they're making progress or not again. If they are, we can continue to monitor and fade the intensity of the intervention. If they're not making progress, that is where we maybe try a different intervention, and eventually a referral for special education. And we would kind of use that intervention data to determine if they would meet for the specific learning disability via response to intervention. So I know that was a really quick, and I'll leave that up. Oh, thought I'd leave it up for a moment if you want to look at that a little bit closer as I just kind of wrap up. That's a really quick and dirty of the process. We're really at a point as a team that we're ready to submit documents to the state for us to move forward with this. We're currently working on a case study to practice and work out the kinks with a plan to roll out to school-wide Valley Park Elementary next year. So at this time, if there are any thoughts or questions, we'd be happy to hear them and talk through that.
Well, I'll jump in. I think it looks like a great plan, and it might open some doors for some help for kids that, like you said, may have just been just above the line. And I know that's so frustrating for everybody who wants to get those kids what they need. So I'm hoping that this, can open those doors for them. And I was just wondering, just really quickly, so for a child to be determined well below, what kind of percentage points are we looking at for that? And like if they're determined to be growing at an adequate level, how much of an increase do we see for them to be noted as growing?
Mm-hmm. That's a great question, Della. Thank you for your comments too. Do you mean, for, just to clarify, for response to intervention qualification, like how that process is determined, if they're making growth or not for qualification?
Yeah, like at the initial stage when they're determined as being, you said well below. I wondered how much below, and if there's a percentage or how you measure that. And then when you continue monitoring them, how the progress is tracked, and at what stage are they deemed as making adequate progress or not?
Sure, those are great questions. And some of that is more specific in the document. Some of it will be determined as a team, because obviously each student is an individual case, and I understand you realize that.
Right.
Typically, we've used the 20th percentile, and that has been similar for our school-wide dyslexia screenings, which is through FastBridge, and also through other school districts, kind of best practice. We've connected with Ladue and Kirkwood, a school district in Kansas City, to also help guide and model after kind of what is best practice in those areas. So that's really what we've used as the cut so far, or what we plan from the benchmark data. Once we get into the progress monitoring data, I anticipate that I will work closely with the interventionist team, the reading interventionists, who are completing directly most of the intervention services for the students. And we plan to meet regularly to review that data to see if a lot of how they're making progress is determined on their goal. So if they're at the, well, I don't want to get too much into numbers, but say our goal is that by the end of the school year, they're at the 50th percentile for functioning in the spring for their grade. If we notice after 6 to 8 data points is usually best practice for determining if that's effective or not. If we see that the progress, and I might be hard to see with this, if they're on an upward trend of making progress, that would be a signal to us after 6 to 8 data points that they're on track, they're doing well. And we can maybe at that point in the plan, just continue to monitor or phase out intervention as time goes on. If we see that it's inconsistent or it's at a downward trend and we don't think that they'll meet their goal, that would be a signal that, okay, this is not meeting their needs. So we either need to try a different intervention or consider a special education referral. Does that help answer? Does that make sense?
It absolutely makes sense. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Della.
Hey, I have a question for Jan. Jan, this is your building. How do you think this change is going to help move the elementary school forward in the path that we want to get better, as we've been trying to be a top elementary school? How is this plan going to help you achieve that? Because we want to look at the school as an overall, right? As an overall elementary. So my question is how does this help you achieve the better elementary school?
I believe Dr. Monroe got kicked off and is trying to.
I didn't kick her off, I promise.
No. I think she's trying to work with Patrick and Zach to get back online
I was
right
like, I
now.
can't find her.
Oh,
Michelle.
she's coming.
Scanning.
I will tell you not
Oh,
to
there's
speak out
Michelle.
of
We'll take,
turn.
wait a minute.
There you go.
We'll take
She's
number
there.
2 in command. We'll take 2 in command.
Well, I'll let Jan
There she is.
answer if she
Jan's
heard
here.
it. If not, I can.
Hi, Jan. You're on mute.
Hi, sorry, I was frozen. I just got back on. What can I do?
I just had one question. You know the presentation that we just looked at. I'm sure you're familiar with it.
Yes.
My question to you is, we're always striving to make the elementary school a top elementary school, right? In the state, in the nation, in the country. I just want to know your opinion at your school. I want to know how is this going to help you make the elementary school a better overall school for all of the students? This plan that we're talking about moving to.
Oh, absolutely. And first of all, it's not my school, it's our school. So
Yeah, you're just in charge of it.
when I think about this plan, I think about all the kids that have not been getting services because they didn't qualify. So this will really level the playing field for all of our students, and then we can get the supports in place that they need.
And what was the percentage that we thought, you named 6 students over how many years? What's the percentage you think have been falling through the cracks of our 390 students?
Pete, that's a great question. We've talked about this since we've been looking at the RTI model, and like Christina Mirth said, so many of our students, we don't even go through the process with them because we know they won't qualify under the discrepancy model. So Christy, I don't know if you want to jump in and if you have a percentage for Pete. I
mean, Chrissy, you might just have a feeling. I know I'm not going to hold you to a number, to exact digits. I'm just trying to get a feeling. You know, is it 5% or is it 90%? Just something in there.
Yeah, I mean, of the students that I've assessed for specific learning disability, that would have been helpful to look at as the overall total number. And I'm sure I do have that data, but I would estimate that's probably about 25 to 40%. I know that's an odd percentage, but that's just what comes to mind. And you know, the community is so unique because we're so small. So if we have a student or two, that affects our numbers.
I understand.
So year to year, it's a little different, but I definitely feel like what kind of hits home to me is I can think of every year, definitely a student, maybe 2, that we've just kind of revisited, and I've tried to lead, some type of problem solving meeting with the team after the eligibility where the student doesn't qualify, and try to come up with what are some supports that we can provide that student. Obviously, special school districts' hands are tied with what they can provide the student if they didn't qualify.
Right.
So anyway, I know that's.
So it could be as many as 150 kids.
Well.
25% of 390.
I apologize. I think I maybe misinterpreted your.
I think the important thing is, regardless of the number, obviously, I think one of the reasons to move positively in this direction is if it even helps or captures one more kid, that's really what we're here for. So, I know it's hard because we're not really comparing apples to apples as far as what's been done versus what will be done in the future. But even just the very small sample size Christy mentioned earlier, 6 kids is a big deal for us. And my guess is, without putting a percentage on it, it is much larger than that. But even if it's just 6 kids, those 6 kids are really important to their parents and families, and they're really important to us. And so we want to provide them with the best services possible so they can become their best versions of themselves.
Tim, why did this all of a sudden come up as a change needing to be made? How did we end up with the other system? And I mean, have we been thinking about moving this direction for a couple of years? Or, so
a combination of things.
What made it come to light? That's all I'm asking.
Sure. The discrepancy model is still the prevalent model across the state of Missouri. But much like Christy mentioned and the elementary has mentioned, a lot of educators had found problems with the discrepancy model. It basically is designed to do exactly what it does, but unfortunately, because there are so few data points and so few opportunities to capture kids, there are often a number of kids that are just right at that line that every high quality educator can look at that student and say, gosh, I know he or she needs just a little bit more, but because of the process of the discrepancy model, they just test out, so to speak.
Right.
So really with what Jan and Fitz and the elementary team have done with the CI3T model and their response to interventions, that actually makes it a very natural progression to move to this type of model. But also, as Christy also alluded to earlier, it really is best practice. So while there aren't as many districts using it yet, I think it will not be too long before it really is the prevalent model across the state. It's recognized by DESE, it's fully approved by DESE and accepted. And I would imagine more districts, much like us, wanting to capture even just a handful more kids, will keep moving that way.
Well, and with those students that should be getting individualized instruction, that can now, whenever they get to middle school, hopefully we'll be seeing a big difference there as well. So we catch it early, and then by the time they get up to middle school, it'll be, they'll be rolling along and maybe won't even need that individualized instruction.
Right, absolutely. Instead of losing minute ground every year, hopefully we can get them going in the other direction. So I think it's a great plan.
Yeah,
and if it prevents one kid from falling through the cracks, and getting the services they need, then it's absolutely worth it. I think it's a great idea.
The earlier we catch it, the better.
And it's awesome because they get evidence-based interventions until we get to the testing point, if that is the end point. So we're not, previously it would be, we know there's problems, talk about what you've done in the classroom, but we kind of wait until we get to the testing stage. This way they're getting intervention the whole time, and we're constantly adjusting. If it's not working, you're looking for something new. You're talking with your teachers who are your first best instruction, and they're telling you how it's working for them. So that could be huge. If we could catch even just 6, that's huge.
And it sounds like we're not really fully able to utilize SSD if we're not able to get all of the kids involved that can be. And this is a way to really utilize them more.
Yeah, and I would add too, in the 8 years Christy and I started together, and our numbers have definitely decreased with our students who have qualified for special education.
Yeah.
And we've probably gone from about 14% to about, we're 11.5% in the overall population. And so I think that speaks to another need, because we have kids that need the support, and our numbers have dropped a little bit. So, and I really think too, it's a testament to that CI3T team at the elementary, because we've known, even when Dr. Bailey was here, it's been on our radar. It's been something we've wanted to do. But in order to submit that plan to the state, we had to have evidence of tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3 that really, like Lisa was talking about, speaks to that general education and that top tier. So the work that team has done in the entire building in the last 2 or 3 years, that's why we're here now versus where we were a couple of years ago. And I know Dr. Monroe and Ms. Fitzpatrick don't like to, they like to talk about the whole building, but it's really under their leadership that this has been able to go to that next level, because without that commitment, and it was a lot of commitment, multi-year training, multi-year support. So just a really big shout out to them, and we're really excited. And I think, Jeremy, you kind of spoke to the middle school and the high school. For someone who sits on the district-wide teams, I can be with the middle school. I'm like, oh my gosh, I know this kid. We've been talking about this student for 2 or 3 years, and we still can't, help. And then we get to the high school. Yeah, I know who this student is. This is what we're doing. So hopefully we'll have less of those conversations, and we'll be able to catch them early, which is obviously that response to intervention. But a really big shout out to the team. And I know we have a big agenda tonight, but I'm very, very proud of where we're at with this.
So Julie, then maybe follow up in a year or so and let us know how it's going then, and see
Absolutely.
what the changes have been.
Absolutely. I think that's a great idea, Pete.
Great. Thank you.
Well, thank you all. Thank you for your time, your input, and your thoughtful questions. I appreciate that. Pete, I will add one clarification before I hand it back to the next person on the agenda with my percentages. I just want to make sure that I'm clear that the percentages I mentioned are really out of the kids that we've probably assessed for specific learning.
I got it.
Okay, perfect. Well, thank you all. Unless there's any other questions or comments, I'll pass it back to Dr. Dilge or Mr. Picker.
Yep. Thank you very much. We appreciate that. I'm actually next. We're going to have a recognition, but I've been thankful to see a lot of the Facebook posts this past month. Ms. Gaston, the work that you've done doing that and highlighting some of the things that that the elementary school has been doing and the other schools as well, but also highlighting Black History Month. I know that I believe it was in January when Dr. Savage and Mrs. Patton and the professional development team started a book study on blind spot that we as board members were invited to go to as well, and that's been a great book. It's been really enlightening to talk with the teachers, to listen to what the teachers are saying, being part of those discussions. The book is basically about the bias that that we all have, and maybe we don't even know it. How to recognize those biases and having discussions with other teachers about them so we can make our instruction better for our students. And that's really the goal of it. And so it's been great to hear that, especially as that directly impacts students of different race or ethnicity, socioeconomics, all that stuff that that we might have bias towards and not even know it. So it's been great to be a part of that during this month as well. I know my son has come home on and talked about some of the things they're doing because it is Black History Month. It's been great to be able to recognize that and see that permeating throughout the school right now. Just that awareness of what's going on. I know that has been through our teachers, whether it's different posts I've seen on social media from the teachers, from Amy Gass, from the from the building administrators as well. So I just want to say thank you for that. But that's also gone down into our full-time subs as well. And I want to say a big thank you to Jarrell Bobbitt and the book donation that he started, getting books into the elementary school that highlight kids of different races. And I know it's been great. I know that those have been well received, but I just wanted to say a big thank you to Jarrell, and he's been a full-time sub since we've been back in school, I believe. And so I just wanted to say thank you to him and just for the environment that he felt comfortable to come and talk to Dr. Monroe and Ms. Fitzpatrick about all this as well. And so thank you to our administrators, thank you to our teachers, and Mr. Bobbitt as well for the work that he did and making sure that our students are aware socially of what's going on and how we can be just more aware of our surroundings, more aware of the people that are around us, and that everybody is not like us, and that's okay. And not only is it okay, but we can celebrate the differences that we have in Valley Park. So again, thank you very much. I don't know if any of the other boards just wanted to say anything. I know Della did. I saw you share that post on Facebook as well. So.
Well, I just want to make sure that I personally thank Jarrell Bobbitt for, first of all, organizing the book donation. And I thought it was a really great way for us to celebrate Black History Month and bring our students together. And I just also want to say that I want to thank Jarrell Bobbitt for just being himself. Jarrell is a product of our school. I had the honor of knowing him when he was a student here. I can guarantee you he always could put a smile on your face, and it looks like he's still doing that. So I'm just very appreciative of him coming back here to our district and committing himself to making a difference with our students. And I'm glad that he had a great conversation with people to help us be more aware. So I just want to say thank you to him and thank you to everybody who contributed and helped make this happen. And I really enjoyed watching it unfold. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to say thank you as well. I appreciate that he saw an area that he thought we could improve in, and he set up his own plan and he made it happen and very quickly, and it was fantastic. So great job, and thank you so much for all you do for that and every day.
All right, we're going to go ahead and continue on. We've got our the budget overview for SSD at Valley Park. Ms. Schrader.
Hi. All right. So I think I'm presenting. Let me know if I am not. I
You're
also
good.
want to echo just the thanks to the board, and I think the presentation that Christy just did, the presentation on the partnership plan that we did earlier in the year, and just all the celebrations across the board are really, it just really speaks to the inclusiveness of our buildings, but because of the board as well. And as we go through this and we talk about all students, and I think that's the commitment that the board has had for a while, but I think the specific board, more than ever, it's very apparent. And I know that our staff at Special School District really feel that appreciation as well. So thank you as we celebrate you this month. So a little recap of this. We have moved into a zero-based budget process at Special School District. And I would say that we're still working out some of the glitches as a huge county district moving into something like this. And so for the last 2 years, we've presented with our special school district executive leadership team, as well as key members from Valley Park. What I wanted to highlight this year, and we can send you the full presentation as well, I thought that the leadership team at SSD did a really nice job of really speaking to what's happening around the county. Because we are such a small district, sometimes we're not aware of all of the pieces that are happening. And so a lot of this I took out because it's really what I presented in the partnership plan. So I really tried to focus on those countywide pieces. And so some of the parts that were in the larger presentation, which was an hour long and about 60 slides, really covered the special education categories, which we've gone over historically in the past, that special education process for evaluations, which Christy obviously highlighted again, and then those different models and services. So that's something we talk about on a regular basis in our buildings with the board and our leadership. And then another purpose is really on that focus of equity. And I would actually add equity and access across the county. And again, really similar to that journey that we're on here in Valley Park when we're talking about equity. And then checks and balances, which is really important, especially as a small district. Some of you have heard me preach. I came from a larger district in my past administrative role. And it was really important when I came to Valley Park that our students here in Valley Park got the exact same things as our students were getting in other districts that may have had more money, other districts that may have had more staffing, more access. And so that was really important to me to continue that here in a smaller district, especially with that continuum of services. And then really looking at those partner district goals, our Ssd goals, which again, we've highlighted before in our learning report and the partnership plan, those key data points in the budget, and then the overall strengthening in partnership. In a nutshell, if you look at that equity core value for special school district, again, very similar to what we speak to here in Valley Park, but really looking at every student, regardless of that learning ability, socioeconomic status, deserves access to the services they need to exceed. And that's really why I really put the equity and access, because it's really both of those pieces. And over the last couple of years, what SSD has really spent some time doing is looking at that internal study to really develop a framework so that all districts and all students across the county are getting very similar things based on what those needs are. And they really went deep in the last year or two and looking at mobility rates and those poverty rates as well. And I thought this is, to me, if there's one thing to walk away with, I think this map is it. For those of us who have been in Valley Park a while, I've only been here 8 years. There's people, watching tonight that have lived their whole life and their whole families have been here. And we talk about the uniqueness of this community, and this map shows this. So this is that Distressed Communities Index. And here is our entire county. And we talk a lot in the county about our northern districts, and there are definitely some needs up there. But here we are in Valley Park, sitting in this mid-tiered range of need when we look at these pieces of equity, and we're surrounded by districts who are very prosperous and comfortable. And so I just thought this was a really, really key map, just as a visual to look at for my purpose when I'm going to a countywide district to advocate for our students. So we want to make sure that we're still getting the same things that those other districts are getting as we look at this. So from that, they really broke it down and looked at those 3 tiers. So making sure countywide, all tiers, all schools were getting that framework to support that across the county. But then really looking at tier 2 and tier 3, where are those higher need populations, higher need communities, higher need maybe groups of students that we need to make sure are still getting access and equity to those service and those resources. And really then it comes back to that partnership plan. And again, I preach it all the time, our leadership team here in Valley Park, really making sure the superintendent collaboration, the partner district partnership, teaching and learning, the technology, the parent resources, all of those pieces fall together. And I don't know if you know this, but Dr. Dilge sits on a number of committees where he is attending with special school districts. So superintendents across the county, meetings with myself, Dr. Savage as well. So there's a lot of meetings behind the scene to make sure that collaboration is happening at a high level. And then really looking at those factors determining the budget. So obviously the area plans, demographics, enrollments, those trends, student data suspensions, and then our district initiatives. And historically, we've usually gotten, I would say about $400 per teacher level staff on instructional materials. I think that's a pretty typical number across the county for teachers to receive. What's going to happen now is we're going to have centralized purchasing, and it's really going to allow those higher ticket items that Christy spoke to, those evidence-based practices, some of those evidence-based curriculums that we really need for special education. We're no longer going to have to purchase them as an individual district. That's going to be purchased county-wide, which means those individual needs, we will also then have that same amount of money to move forward with and purchase those things as we need it. And then just again, to reiterate the partnership with that. So continuing the planning regarding to programming, opportunities when we're looking at key special education topics. So, you know, what Christy did tonight, doing the presentations on those initiatives, making sure that we're continuing that participation when we're looking at core academics and tiers, reducing suspension rate, which our suspension rate is really very, very low, relatively speaking, in the county, and then just continuing that high representation of our general education staff at IEP meetings. And then the next steps is just, again, continuing with the use of that multi-tiered system, again, with our CI3T and things that we're doing through response to intervention. We're right where we need to be, ensuring that that inclusion with students with IEPs continues to be a focus, which it has been for the last 8 years since I've been here, ensuring that those tiers are good. And then just continuing to just update and move forward with any of those needs that we have when we think of equity and access. And that is it in a nutshell. So I know, again, like Christy said, a lot of information in a short amount of time. Again, really going back to the partnership plan and information that we've already presented, but wanting to, again, really highlight those pieces that are happening county-wide and how it impacts our students and our staff here in Valley Park. Any questions that I can answer?
Not a question. I did just want to say thank you. I did use that DCI slide to try to highlight some questions for potential SSD board candidates for the governance council meeting on Monday. So thank you for that. It was eye-opening.
It was, and I can't take credit for the slide, but when I saw it, I mean, we talk about it all the time. We have this unique community. I'm like, wow, there's the slide that shows it right there. And I would just do a shout out to, you know, special school district right now, that when we did the budget presentation, I said, you know, materials, we kind of have it, access to the resources, we have it. I need the staff. Like, our numbers are a little bit low, and a couple of students could look like different staffing, and the commitment is there for staffing, which makes my team be able to do what they do for every student every day. And so that's a big piece of that when we're looking at that map.
Well, I think just the idea of having access to those other programs, because like you said, with that buying, you know, them buying it and then us being able to use it for our students, I think that's going to be really nice to get all of those tools in the hands of all of you people who know what to do with them. So I'm very happy about that. I appreciate all of the efforts And I know it's going to have a big payoff for the kids.
Absolutely. And you know, we know this, that like when you buy things in bulk, you get a better rate. So what I pay is maybe very different than a surrounding district. So the fact that we're not going to have to do that for a smaller district, and it's in that large sense. And the other piece that I think it comes with is building capacity with the training, the coaching, and the support. Because it's one thing to have the materials, and then it's another thing to be using them with fidelity across time, across settings with all kids. And so that's, to me, even the more exciting part, where we're looking at really focusing on those vetted materials.
Is there any other questions or comments? All right. Well, thank you so much for the presentation and the work that y'all do. Very much. There are no public comments tonight, so we are going to go straight into 3.01, the approval of the agenda. I'll go ahead and make a motion. Can I have a second?
Second.
All right, and we will go ahead and again, I'm going to be roll call and vote since we're on Zoom. So Nicole?
Yay.
Pete?
Aye.
Faye?
Aye.
Adam?
Aye.
Lisa?
Aye.
Della?
Aye.
And I as well. All right. Go ahead and move on to our consent items. So 4.01 is the approval of the regular session minutes from January 27th, 2021, and 4.02 is the approval of the check registrar from February 2021. I'll make a motion to approve the consent items. Are there, can I get a second? Thank you, Adam. And we'll go ahead and go with Pete. Or did anybody want to bring anything out? Sorry, I didn't say it. No.
Only 2 items.
Yeah, about that. Very simple today. Pete?
Aye.
Faye?
Aye.
Adam?
Aye.
Lisa?
Aye.
Della?
Aye.
Nicole?
Aye.
Aye. All right. 4.01 and 4.02 have passed. And we'll move down into the action items. 5.01, the approval of the 2021-2022 early childhood programming. Dr. Tad Savage and Amy Hopper.
Thank you very much, Mr. Picker. Good evening, everyone. As I share my screen here with you, if you remember last month, I came to you and asked that we keep tuition the same. And at the same time, I did mention that we were still thinking about some programming changes that I was going to come back to you in March, but we expedited that and wanted to bring it to you in February so we could get moving on this. Huge shout out goes to Amy Hopper and Susan Dawson. They're instrumental in helping with this process. And as you can see, they're both with us this evening. So if there's any questions, there's 3 of us here that are able to help with that. So sharing my screen now, so hopefully you can see that. If not, let me know. Perfect. So I'm going to share with you a recommendation for our early childhood programming next year. As you know, we have 4 classrooms. We have what's called a Wonder class, which is a multi-age class, an Explore class, which is also a multi-age class. Usually Amy tries to group the older children there. And then we have our Discover class, which is our pre-kindergarten class. We also have our Imagine Peer Model class. We're not going to be really discussing that class tonight. That class will not change. That'll still stay in place. So you saw this slide last time. Just briefly explains and covers some of the things, some of the goals of each of those programs. And you've had this slideshow, I believe, for a couple of days. So hopefully you had a chance to review that. This next slide you've also seen before. I shared it last month. As you can see, this year our numbers in blue are down to 42. One thing I do want to point out, because it will be important later, is our numbers the previous 3 years. As you can see, we jumped to 73, 79, and 75 for total number of students in the program over the last 3 years. And so we're hoping that once we all have shots in our arms and we get back to normal, our numbers will increase back at least close to that. This slide, excuse me, was shared last month as well. This was last year's losses. And a lot of that was due to COVID and shutting down early, but also some of that was due to our revenue not and expenditures not matching. So if we were to continue on the same path, and this is where we get to the meat of this, if we continue on the same path, our expenses next year would be about $315,000. Continuing on the same path, we would have 3 classrooms, as I shared with you before. We would have 3 teachers and 4 teachers' assistants. Currently, in our Discover program, we have 12 kids. In our Wonder program, we have 15 kids. Our Explore program also has 15 kids. Some of those kids are 2 days a week, some are 3 days a week, some are 5 days a week. I did not break that all out, but that's where we come up with just 42 students like you saw in one of those previous slides. And so what this is really telling you is this year we are overstaffed, and it's really due to COVID because our numbers are so low. So here's the recommendation is to cut expenses down to $245,000 to go with 2 teachers and 3 teacher assistants. And what we would do is we would have 2 classrooms with 20 students per class would be our goal. Each classroom was staffed with a teacher and a teacher assistant so we can maintain a 10-to-1 ratio, student to adult ratio. It's a savings of about $70,000 there. If you have questions about the child to adult ratio, the preferred guidance from DESE is 7-to-1 with no more than 21 children in a room. They say acceptable is 10-to-1. So this recommendation is based on that acceptable level. What I recommend is that those 20 students that we take in our Discover program, well, we would need to take 20 students in our Discover program in the AM only. We'd need to keep 20 students in our Explore Wonder class combined. I don't know if we would call it Explore or Wonder or both. And that'd be a total number of 42 students enrolled in our Valley Park Early Childhood Center. Right now we're at 42. Of those 40 students, for us to break even, 20 of those would need to stay all day. What we would do is we would combine those 2 classrooms into 1 classroom. So we would have 1 class with 20 students in it. And this is really the key, is the bottom part here. We need to work to fill our early childhood center with students that are there 5 days a week. So if we had 17 students at 5 days a week, we would want to take 3 students at 2 days a week and then offset that with 3 students 3 days a week. That keeps our numbers the same. So we stay at 20. Now, that could change if we had 5 students that wanted to come 2 days a week and 5 parents that wanted to send their students 3 days a week. Then we would, we want to be flexible. Then we would offer 15 5-day-a-week spots. Just to give you an idea, do you think we can reach those numbers? I feel that we do. I feel that if teachers are vaccinated and we're back to a more normal situation, I really hope we do. This is historical enrollment comparison for half days. As you can see, just if you go back to last year, 3 2-day-a-week kids, 5 3-day-a-week students, and then 14, that was our half day. And that was a little bit down just from the year before, but you can see our numbers fluctuate quite a bit there with our half day students. When you look at our full day historical comparison, you can see that we were at 9 students last year, full day, 5 2-day-a-week kids, and just 6. But when you go back to the pre-pandemic, we're looking at 25 kids that were there 5 days a week and 23 kids that were there 5 days a week. So those numbers are encouraging that hopefully we'll get back to where we were. Now, we also offer early care. That's from 7 to 8:15. We would want to staff that with 1 teacher assistant. In order to break even, we would need a minimum of 4 students there. When I was talking and working with Amy earlier, that number varies. It's 4 to 8 is typically where we're at, and we would charge $100 a month to families for that early care that need to drop off early. Extended care lasts a little longer, quite a bit longer. Right now, we have 1 teacher assistant assigned to that. Amy and I had a brief email exchange today where we may want to look at 2 people there based on the number of kids, just because you want to make sure you have plenty of coverage after school as well. But then that cost would be $200 a month, and we would need 8 students to break even for extended care. And typically we get between 8 to 11, 12 students there in extended care in a normal year. So when I worked with Susan on a budget, we really tried our best to be very, very, very conservative. We based our expected revenue on just 9 months. We know the students are there longer than 9 months. And there's a few weeks in August that they're there. But we just wanted a little bit of wiggle room. So if we had 20 students in our Discover class, that dollar amount would end up being about $68,000. The same amount for 20 students in our Explore Wonder class. For those 10 students from our Discover class that would stay all day, that would generate additional revenue of $46,800. And that would be the same revenue that comes from the 10 students that would need to stay in our Explore Wonder class. Add in early care, before school and after care, after school lets out at $14,400. Total projected revenue is about $248,000. As you saw in a previous slide, our projected expenses were about $245,000, $246,000. I did want to share with you over on the right side of the screen where we're at this year. As you know, as I shared last week, numbers are low because of COVID. We've had to close a few classrooms a few times. So revenue this year is only expected to be about $84,000. So it'll be a pretty big hit this year. Can we open a 3rd classroom? It sure would be nice to go back to having 3 classrooms and my hope is that we will. What would it take? It would take 20 part-time students to open a 3rd classroom. We discussed having a waiting list and having parents on that waiting list. And once we reached the amount of students we needed, then we could open that. I do think it would be important to follow the same enrollment model. That way we don't have, 15 kids in class one day, 20 kids in class another day, 8 kids in class another day. We really need to do our best to be consistent to keep the classes at 20. So just a summary, just a little highlight, start with 2 classrooms, option to open a 3rd classroom. We do want to maintain all parent options. I know that's something that came up last month, that we still want to be able to offer 2 days, 3 days, half days, all those things. So we're able to maintain all those options. Thanks to the board for keeping tuition costs stable, as next year is still so unpredictable. This plan is fiscally responsible, self-supporting, and it does allow us to continue to offer early and late care. So I have a little bit more to share with you, but I did want to stop at this point and just see if you had any questions so far. Okay, Della.
I have a couple actually. So does that mean that in the slots that you had like two slots and 3 slots for like morning kids for like 2 days and 3 days, I guess?
Mm-hmm.
So does that mean like after we get 2 kids at 2 days a week, then if someone else comes in and they want that, they'll have to go on a wait list for it?
No, what we would try to do is, and our historical data was pretty close. What we would try to do is anytime a parent came in and says, I want to be a 3-day-a-week parent, we would offset that with a 2-day-a-week parent. And we would let that grow as high as we could. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so if the interest was there, we're going to do our best to accommodate.
Oh, absolutely. We want to lean over backwards to help our parents.
And then I noticed that we have morning only classes, but has there ever been interest in afternoon only classes?
Afternoon only, Amy, I don't know if we've ever had just an afternoon only option. Can you chime in on that?
Oh, yes. This year we actually have a classroom that's run by special school district, and it is an afternoon class. It starts at 12:15 and ends at 3 o'clock. We've offered that as part of our registration process in the past couple years, and there have not been enough families interested to actually get that started up. This year we were able to do it because we had some students that were also students needing services. So we were able to enroll some typically developing students as well and integrate them for the peer model class. But this is the first year since I've been director that we've been able to do that.
I was just curious because I thought maybe if somebody was working evenings, I just didn't know if the need was there. You know, that somebody might want to drop their child off at 12 and then have someone else pick them up. You know, I just was wondering if it was an option, if the need was there. So it was just my other question. And then I saw on there, if you go back a couple of slides where you were talking about the income, what was that $15,000 from St. Louis County Cares? You want to tell us about that?
Sure. Susan, would you like to chime in on that? Susan did so much work with the CARES Act funds. And so Susan, would you like to just talk briefly about that?
Sure. So one of the pots of money that was available this year was to counties was for daycare because of businesses having to close, or a lot of it was driven by first responders needing someone to watch their kids. But we were able to kind of piggyback on that and capitalize on some assistance to get some aid, because we continued to pay our staff in the spring, even though we weren't able to bring in any tuition.
Yeah, and that was the key, is that we needed to stay open and maintain our staff in order to be eligible for the CARES Act money.
Right, to offer an option for people who needed it.
It wasn't a lot, but it was a little. It was helpful.
Mm-hmm. I think it was helpful. So thank you for doing that, Susan.
Sure.
And Amy and Tad, thanks. I know you guys worked hard on this, so I'm done for now.
Sure, no
problem. The question I've got is, how are we covering the shortfall? Is that coming from general fund, Tim, or what's the plan?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's correct. It continues to come out of our surplus funding. You know, Dr. Savage hit on the highlights of the COVID impact, but even if you look back at the 3 years prior to COVID, we had losses in the district of over 20,000, 48,000, and 76,000. So even when our numbers were high, the program has still been losing money.
Yeah, I as a board member, I mean, I'm not wanting the school to be a place to revenue generator, but the public, and as a cares person for our tax dollars, as being an elected board member, as one of our main purposes is to make sure that our money that we all pay in taxes goes to the right spot. We just can't bleed like this, like we've been bleeding. So I want everyone taken care of, and we want the ability to people to use the service. But if they're not, we just can't continue to keep it at the rate we are, because you can only bleed so long. And I think it's very, very fiscal responsible for Tim, you and Tad and Susan and Amy, all of you, to look at the program and think of it from a fiscal side, and know that we have to also look at the dollars to stay in business.
Right. I mean, it's unfortunate because ideally people, could say, well, if the tuition was lower, then more people could participate, and then that would open it up to more kids, and then it would maybe open it up to filling more spots and generating more revenue. But at the end of the day, I know you guys look at all those numbers really hard and you do your best, and we've been doing our best for a long time. I mean, I don't know, is there a way that could happen? I just feel like if there was a way for that to happen and us to reduce tuition to make it more accessible, I think that I feel confident that you guys would have already done it. But I mean, I don't know if there are any ideas you guys are bouncing around about that.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I'm just going to step in. I see exactly what you're talking about, getting volume over the short dollar and to raise up the difference. I just don't know if the need is there, even if the cost was lower. If you look at the last 3 years of data, it doesn't look like it's trending that way, but who knows? I don't know if we have a survey, if we know people that specifically said, hey, they would come if it was less money and we could get the volume up, right? And it would pay for it. Maybe that would be an idea, but I know exactly where you're coming from.
Yeah, it would be nice to be able to do something like that. And we crunched, Susan and I crunched lots of numbers. We really did, because we know we want to offer this program to as many people as possible. And by keeping tuition stable this year, I think, and keeping our options open, so at least you can come 2 days a week or 3 days a week, right, for half a day.
Right.
I think by doing that, we are doing the best we can.
Do we know if the other school districts are seeing the same trend that we are?
The two school districts that I reached out to are seeing the same trends. They are not keeping tuition the same next year, though.
They're trying to make up the losses by raising tuition. Understood.
I have a question. Does anybody know what accounts for the increase in expenditures over the last few years?
Yeah.
Sure. And Susan, feel free to chime in there. A few years ago, what we realized is our expenditures coming from the Early Childhood Center were not being, some of those expenses were actually tied to the elementary school expenses. And when Susan started diving into that a few years ago, she realized that some of those costs that were being tied to the elementary school should have been being tied to the Early Childhood Center all along. So,
That gives me anxiety.
so that's part of it.
Wow. Okay. Thank you.
Welcome. If there are no more questions, there's some good news here I'd like to share with you. Earlier this year, Dr. Dilgen and I talked about, can we extend our program so that it is possibly year-long? And so I've been working with Amy on this for, since last semester, and Amy did a fantastic job. All the credit goes to her putting this together. And this is another proposal. It's kind of a pilot program to see how this would work if we did this, keep early childhood open all summer. It would be a 10-week program, June 7th through August 13th, all summer almost, from 8 to 3:30. It would be a paying program, $225 a week per student. There is a registration fee, $25 non-refundable. That fee would go also to help buy supplies and things like that the kids would need. We would need a minimum of 8 students to break even in that program, a maximum of 20 students, so we could maintain DESE's guidance, or their guidelines, I should say. We would want parents to provide the snack and the lunch, unless we're able to provide or continue our seamless summer program like we did this year. Then we would work with Kelsey in food service to provide meals for the students. And teachers, staff would be assigned an 8-hour shift each day. Amy's already begun working on weekly themes, what the kids would do. As you can see, sounds like fun. My favorite was the under the sea ocean animals, but I'm sure you all have your own favorites. But these would be some of the weekly themes for the children. Staff members paid $18 an hour for a total of $720 per week. The camp would require employing 2 teachers for each day. That staffing cost is $17.39 per week for staffing. We would need Amy all summer, and so I would like to propose that we give her a $600 stipend for planning, registration, supervision of the camp. And I've included here a spreadsheet that Susan put together, what the revenue would look like with 8 students. Revenue would, for week 1, if you had 8 students, we'd get $1,800. Staff member 1 would and 2 would each cost $835. If you recall, I said it would be about $739 or $740 in a previous slide. Well, when it goes to Susan, she always finds my mistakes, and we forgot to add in benefits. So it is fixed on Susan on our spreadsheet here. So it breaks down to $835 per teacher, and an administrator, $70 a week. Expenditures are $1,740. If we brought in 8 kids at $1,800, we would break even with $60 more a month. And at the end of the 10 weeks, about $600. And we're not in this to make money, like you've all said. We just want to break even and provide a wonderful service to our families. So that's the end of my presentation for the summer school program. Any questions about that?
Before we go into discussing it anymore, let's go ahead and get a motion out there. Would somebody like to do that? All right.
Sorry, I'll move to approve 5.01.
All right, can I have a second?
Second.
All right. What are some questions that we have of Hopper and Dr. Savage?
For the summer school program, could we do a survey to see if we had the interest ahead of time? And that would really help us, right?
Amy's going to jump all over that. Mm-hmm.
I think it's a great idea. Yeah, Della, don't say it.
That's right. It's a great idea. I want to come. Anyway, I think that that's great. I'm really proud of you guys for, going there. And I hope that we do have some kids that can take advantage of it. I think at this time, everybody, we're just doing our best to survive and try to continue offering the best to the students. And hopefully this will help and be one of those things that'll help us, rebuild the program after our lovely pandemic. And I'm very excited. I think that that's great for kids, and I hope it works out great for working parents. So I want to thank you for your efforts on that.
Part of the thinking too behind the summer program is that we do know a lot of the private early childhood centers are year round, and a lot of families choose to enroll their students in that because of that. They don't have the luxury of not having services or trying to find a different service in the summer. So I think we have a lot of confidence that we'll have needs there. And also thinking a little bit about our early childhood students who will be transitioning from preschool to kindergarten. Obviously, this has been a very unusual year for them, also starting off virtually because of the pandemic. And so the hope is that some of them may want to continue their learning with Amy and her staff this summer as they get ready to transition into kindergarten as well.
I know that these decisions were not made lightly. I know that they were very tough to probably even talk about, as far as the number of teachers and and aides that you have in there. I know having a it would basically be a 20 to or 10 to 1 ratio in there, 20 kids in one class. That's a lot for a preschool. I've had the opportunity to be around the preschool a lot, and that's very difficult. Some of the other things that was just kind of that were just kind of going through my mind were the after school or the extended care rather after school. Are you thinking you are definitely going to be having at least two teachers or a teacher and an aide or 2 people there? Was that the plan, or was the plan to start with 1?
The plan was to start with 1, and as we talked more about it, even all the way up to today, we really talked about, well, if we have more kids, especially, that two may be necessary, and also to make sure we keep our kids safe and accounted for.
Yeah, that was one of my biggest concerns, was having just 1 teacher in there with younger kids. I know if there's any type of emergency, you've got to wait for somebody to be down there. And I know you guys have already thought about this, but that was, that's definitely one of my concerns, is just having 1 down there. But we also want to protect the, the teachers that we have, the staff that we have in there as well. So I would, that would be my feedback, is that I don't see how we just have 1. I know the numbers, the dollars may not be there, but that's, to me, that seems like something that we have to do in order to have a safe environment for our teachers and our students at that young age.
Mm-hmm. And that is something we can do. And of all the costs associated with the program, that is one of the minimal costs. It wouldn't be too much to add that.
And also, probably the only thing that I was thinking is I'm assuming you're thinking teachers and aides during the summer, correct?
It would actually be staffed with teachers or aides, whoever would work for that amount of money.
Okay, and has there? I don't know what at a school what the legalities are with having high school or early college age kids that are that are helping staff that. Is that I know there's definitely daycares that do that. I don't know if that's a possibility. Obviously, we would love to be able to provide our current staff with the first dibs, I guess, so to speak. But I know after that might be you can get very good care at less cost as well. So.
Yeah, Amy and I spoke, and reaching out to our current staff first is obviously number 1.
Yes.
They're the ones that are familiar with our families and our children.
Mm-hmm.
So it's important. But if we needed to go further, then we'd work with Dr. Dilge and start the hiring process.
What about summer internships or something like that?
It's a good thought.
And then I know that this is just an example, and it's a completely different program. So like the OASIS program that we have that with the volunteers that come in, are there any volunteering programs like through the county where maybe for the aftercare or early care, if we thought we needed a few extra hands, any of those organized volunteer programs that we could maybe access? And obviously they already go through background checks, and I just don't know if there's a program like that out there, but it seems like there's a big trend towards encouraging volunteering these days. And after we get, like you said, everybody that's involved has their vaccinations and they feel safe again, maybe we could find some people through one of those programs if they exist.
Yeah, I don't know if Amy knows of any, but that's certainly something that we can research. Mm-hmm.
I'll keep my ears open.
How about mentoring for the A+ program? Is there any chance of using some of those children during the summer for mentoring.
Another good point, Faye.
Another good point.
I think all those things are options. I would caution, while volunteerism and mentoring is great, this is an early childhood program. It's not a daycare, and those are two very different things. I would also emphasize that the great thing about being a volunteer is that it's not a 40-hour-a-week job, and you don't have to clock in and clock out every day. The downside from an organization standpoint is it's not a 40-hour-a-week job, and you don't have to clock in every day. So when you start to staff and be dependent on volunteers, that leaves yourself very vulnerable for being understaffed to cover your needs. So I think if we're going to explore the volunteer route, we need to view that more from an extra staffing standpoint.
That is what I was talking about, because obviously, like Jeremy said, we need to know we have enough hands on deck to take care of the kids.
And extra hands are great. We'll take all the extra hands.
Extra hands, maybe.
Yeah.
Well, I know that, Amy, I know that this is, it's a tough conversation. And I know that, I mean, as we're talking, I'm getting texts from, parents that are saying how much they love the program. So, we're not saying goodbye to the program by any stretch. And that's, we think that this is important and it feeds into our school, and y'all do such a great job. And so I know this is a difficult, conversation for you to even have. We just appreciate the work that you guys have done and in bringing this plan to us. I know that safety of the students and your staff are at the top of your priority list. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Jeremy. I appreciate hearing those words, and I will definitely share that with our staff. I do think our staff are the core of the program and what makes the families comfortable with, having their children there and giving us that privilege of working with them. So we hope to hear good things from them and hope to continue to see an increase in enrollment.
Absolutely. All right, if there's no more comments or questions, we've had a motion and we've had a second. All right, let's go ahead and we'll start with Adam Watson this time.
Aye.
Okay, and then we'll come down to Lisa.
Aye.
Della.
Aye.
Nicole.
Aye.
Pete.
Aye.
Faye.
Aye.
I'm an aye as well. All right. The next thing that's on our agenda is for us to adjourn. But before I make that motion, I would like to just put out there that I would like for the people that are listening, all of our staff and administration, to please take do a Google search for Missouri House Bill 349, Senate Bill 55. Please look at those things. Consider contacting our representatives. These are things that are very important going into, for the public school. I know that we've heard a lot from Dr. Dilge and our MSBA reps as well. But the more people that are contacting our representatives, the more that they hear their constituents' voices, hopefully, the more they'll vote for what we need. Public schools are important. None of us would be here if we didn't believe this. So I just ask that you do a Google search for those. I know the awareness is not out there a ton for the general public. I know for teachers and administration, it's high on our list. So please consider looking into that and consider contacting, calling our representatives. All right. Having said that, I will make a motion to adjourn to executive session. Can I please have a second?
Second.
All right. Lisa, we'll start with you.
Aye.
Della.
Aye.
Nicole.
Aye.
Pete.
Aye.
Faye.
Aye.
Adam.
Aye.
I'm an aye as well. Everybody, thank you so much for joining us, and we appreciate your dedication to the school. I hope you have a great day, great weekend.
Thank you,
everyone.